Okay, hi, so welcome to this video where we're going to introduce the nervous system. Now, what is the nervous system? Well, the nervous system is basically a way for multicellular organisms to detect and respond to external stimuli, right? External stimuli just means some change in the external environment which can be detected by the organism. Now, first of all, the nervous system, we said, is a communication system. Right? Now, multicellular organisms need a system in which some cells can communicate with other cells and tell them what to do so that you can respond to different things. Okay? If you have a single-celled organism, right, like this great drawing here, this is meant to be a bacteria, right? This bacterium does not need a nervous system. Okay? It doesn't need one because basically anything that happens to it, the cell is in direct contact. Okay, the cell can respond on its own. It does not need a communication system because there's no other cells to communicate with. This organism is literally made of one cell. However, us as individuals, we are made of trillions of cells, right? Crazy high number of cells. If something touches your hand, right, you know about it. But you know about it because there are cells in your brain which allow you to think. So that means that cells from your hand must have communicated with cells in your brain, right? Then you might respond and move. Well, then your brain has communicated with muscle fibers, muscle cells, and they have responded. You see, that is why communication systems are needed. The nervous system is one example of a communication system. All right, now what makes up the nervous system? Well, the first job of the nervous system is to detect things. Okay, and the cells which detect things are called receptors. Okay, so receptors are the ones which will detect stimuli. Okay, so receptors will detect stimuli. Okay, the singular is stimulus, right? Now, these receptors are normally parts of larger organs, for example, right? You've got receptors in your eyes which detect light. Okay, those are rods and cone cells. Okay, they are in the retina of the eye. Obviously, the eye is a more complex organ which has loads of different types of cells in it. These receptors are only one part of that organ. Yep, you also have pressure receptors on your skin. Your skin is actually an organ, and those pressure receptors are part of the skin, but they don't make up the whole of the skin. Alright, now once detected, that needs to be communicated with other cells. Okay, and the way that these communicate are via cells called neurons. Okay, neurons. Now what neurons do is they carry electrical impulses. Okay, now the nervous system basically is electrical impulses traveling from one cell to another, okay, in order to carry information. For example, when you touch something, you know that you've touched it because you just know in your brain, right? But what's happened is an electrical impulse has been sent, let's say from your finger, to your brain, okay? And the way that those electrical impulses get from your finger to your brain is via neurons, okay? Alright, now there are three types of neurons, okay? Three types of neurons. The first being the sensory neuron, or sensory neurons. Okay, the sensory neurons carry an impulse from receptors to your central nervous system. Okay, so when you touch something or you see something, etc., etc., the impulse is carried from the receptor to the central nervous system, which we're going to come onto in a second, via sensory neurons, right? Now, information is then carried from your central nervous system back out in order for you to do something about it. Let's say it's move your hand, right? Or let's say walk away or something like that. Okay, now the information going from your central nervous system to other cells is basically carried via motor neurons. Okay, motor neurons. So I think sensory neurons carries to your central nervous system. Motor neurons carry it away from your central nervous system. Yep. Now the last kind are the relay neurons. Relay. Now these aren't always involved, okay? Sometimes they are. They're involved in reflexes, okay? We're going to come onto that in another video. But basically a relay neuron, as it sounds, carries an impulse from one neuron to another. Okay, so sensory neuron to motor neuron via a relay neuron. Okay, but we'll come on to that in a later video, so don't worry too much about that. Alright, and just to give you a quick idea, this is what a neuron looks like. Okay, here's a diagram. This is basically a neuron, right? Now, you don't need to worry about all the details. Basically though, you've got this long thing here. Okay, now this could actually be really, really long in comparison to the rest of the cell. This diagram is certainly not drawn to scale. Okay, but what happens is an electrical impulse will travel down this long tube like that, right? And then it will go from, let's say, for example, from the receptor, then it'll travel, the electrical impulse will travel down this long thing, and then it's going to be passed on to somewhere else, right? So that's just a quick visual representation telling you how the electrical impulse goes from one place to another. Okay, now the next part of the nervous system is the central, central nervous system, right? Shortened to the CNS. Now, the central nervous system is basically the coordination center, right? This is where information is processed, right? And then actions are organized. Now, the central nervous system consists of the brain, okay, which is the one everyone remembers, and the spinal cord, which is the one everyone seems to forget. Okay, so the brain and the spinal cord. Now, basically, whenever a receptor detects something, okay, the information is sent via a sensory neuron to the central nervous system, right? The central nervous system is where that information is going to be processed, and then if an action is going to be taken, then that action is going to be organized by the central nervous system, right? All of your thoughts occur in your brain, right? But automatic actions also come from your brain, right? Things like breathing, which you don't have to think about, you just do. Things like your heart rate, okay, which is controlled by a center in your brain. Okay, those things, you still do them, but they're completely automatic. Obviously, breathing, you can override that, but it is an automatic thing. You don't have to think about it all the time. That all comes from your central nervous system. Okay. Now, what the central nervous system will do if you have to carry out some kind of action, let's say you're going to get up and walk away, what's going to happen is the central nervous system will send an electrical impulse to something else called an effector via the motor neuron, right? We've spoke about sensory neurons and motor neurons, also about relay neurons. Relay neurons are actually found in the central nervous system, okay? But the motor neuron will take an electrical impulse to an effector, and then the effector will do something. Right, so the effector. Okay, the effector is going to do something. Basically, effector is either a muscle or a group of muscles or glands. Okay, and the muscles will obviously contract. Yep, allowing movement. Okay, whereas the glands will secrete or release some kind of chemicals, right? And these will normally be hormones, which we will look at later on in the course. But those are the effectors. Those are what are going to carry out a response. For example, if you have a look and you decide that some food on the kitchen table looks really good, that your central nervous system might send an impulse to your muscles, which causes your muscles to get up and walk, and you go over, pick up the food and eat it. Okay, that's your effectors. There are your muscles. Your central nervous system has coordinated that response. Okay. On the other hand, if something jumps out at you and you suddenly get shocked, right, your central nervous system will send an impulse, electrical impulse, to a gland. Might be your adrenal glands, right? We'll look at that later. And they might secrete adrenaline. Now, adrenaline is a hormone which basically prepares you for the fight or flight response. But it's what causes you to basically feel butterflies in your stomach, right? If something jumps out at you and gives you a shock. And so that is a gland acting as an effector, and the muscles act as effectors when they move and contract. Okay, so that was just a broad overview of the central nervous system, of the nervous system in general, including the central nervous system. Right, if anything is unclear, then please feel free to post a comment in the box below, or send me a direct email by using the link. As usual, please like and subscribe because it really helps me. And of course, you'll be notified of new videos when they do become available. But thank you very much for watching. Look forward to seeing you in the next one.